So, what if I told you that an anti bribery audit isn't really a pass or fail test? Seriously, think of it more like a vital health checkup for your company's ethical integrity. It's not about catching you out, not at all. It's about making sure your organization is healthy, resilient, and really built to last. So, let's dive in and see how this checkup actually works. You know, every business has its risks, but some of them, they're like a hidden disease, silently working away in the background, undermining everything you've built. Well, bribery and corruption can be that disease. So the real question is, how do you diagnose it before it's way too late? That's exactly what we're going to get into.
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to break this down into 5 key parts. First, we'll talk about what this whole integrity checkup really is. Then, we'll look at the core principles that every auditor lives by, the 4 phases of the actual examination, the kind of modern risks they're hunting for, and finally, the most important part, the prescription for what comes next.
Okay, first things first. This is not your typical financial review where people are just crunching numbers. It goes so much deeper. You should really see it as a diagnostic tool, one designed to assess the ethical health and the overall strength of your organization's governance, from the very top all the way down. And the gold standard for this checkup is ISO 37001. Now, the latest 2025 version, it puts a much stronger emphasis on the things that really matter these days: the company's actual culture, the risks that come from your partners and suppliers, and how you handle potential conflicts of interest. All this means the modern audit is more thorough than it has ever been before. Now, for any of this to work, for it to mean anything, the audit has to be credible. Of course. And that credibility, it's built on a foundation of 7 core principles. Think of this as the auditor's professional oath, the thing that ensures the entire process is completely trustworthy. Yep, just 7. But don't let the small number fool you. These principles are the entire foundation of the process. Without them, the audit has 0 credibility and the whole checkup is basically meaningless. And here they are. You've got principles like integrity, confidentiality, and independence. These ensure the auditor is ethical and totally unbiased. And then you have the evidence-based and risk-based approaches. That just means the audit is objective, systematic, and laser-focused on the areas that pose the biggest threat to your organization's health. So how does this checkup actually play out in the real world? Well, it's a 4-phase examination. And just like a really comprehensive medical exam, this process is structured, it's methodical, and it's designed to give a complete picture of your company's entire anti-bribery nervous system. The whole process follows 4 pretty intuitive steps. It all starts with planning. Think of this as a doctor reviewing a patient's entire medical history. Next step is execution, which is where the actual diagnostic tests are run. Then comes reporting, the diagnosis itself, and it all leads to the follow-up, creating that long-term treatment plan. So in that first planning phase, auditors are basically on the hunt for pre-existing conditions or risk factors. Are you operating in countries that are known for corruption? Do you rely heavily on third-party agents? Are there a lot of high-value gifts and hospitality going on? These are the kinds of initial symptoms that tell an auditor exactly where to focus their attention. Then, during the execution phase, the auditor pulls out their whole range of diagnostic tools. They'll do document reviews, that's kind of like reading the medical charts. They'll conduct interviews, which is like talking to the patient. They'll observe the workplace culture just to get a feel for the place. And they'll run analytical procedures on data to find patterns that pretty much anyone else would miss. Okay, so once all the evidence has been gathered, the findings get categorized. This is the diagnosis. Conformities means everything's looking healthy. Minor nonconformities might be like your doctor saying you need to improve your diet, while major nonconformities, well, that could signal a more serious underlying condition that needs immediate attention. And this brings us to what is honestly the most important part of the entire process. The follow-up isn't about a one-time fix. It's not about slapping on a Band-Aid. It's about creating a sustainable treatment plan, implementing real corrective actions, and then monitoring them to make sure the organization's ethical health actually improves and stays strong for the long haul. But what kinds of diseases are we even looking for in today's world? The corporate landscape has changed so much, and so have the risks. The ISO 37001 standard has had to evolve right along with it, specifically to diagnose these new, more complex challenges. These right here, these are the vital signs for a modern company. An auditor is going to look really closely at leadership's commitment, what we call the tone at the top. They'll assess the actual culture, not just what's written down in some policy document. And they are absolutely going to scrutinize how you manage third parties and conflicts of interest, because that's where so many of today's biggest risks are hiding. To find these modern risks, auditors have an incredibly powerful new tool in their toolkit. Data analytics basically acts like an MRI for your financial and operational information, letting auditors see things that would be completely invisible to the naked eye. Using this technology, auditors can analyze literally millions of transactions to spot suspicious patterns, screen vendor payments for red flags, and detect anomalies that could point to hidden corruption. The key takeaway here is that it's no longer about just sampling a few files. It's about seeing the entire picture.
Of course, auditing a global company isn't simple. Not by a long shot. Auditors are constantly navigating challenges like cultural barriers or super complex corporate structures. But for every obstacle, there's a smart solution, from bringing in local experts to using sophisticated risk-based sampling to cut through all that complexity.
All right, let's get to the final part, the prescription. What do you actually do with the results of your checkup? Remember, the goal isn't just a clean bill of health for one day. It's about creating a plan for long-term corporate well-being. And that really gets to the heart of the matter. It's not just about getting a stamp of approval. The framework guide itself says it perfectly. Effective auditing gives you assurance, sure, but way more importantly, it shows you exactly where you can get better. It's a forward-looking process. So here it is, the prescription for lasting ethical health. You implement specific fixes for the problems you found. You verify that those actions are actually working. You take what you've learned and build it into your training. You use technology to keep an eye on things going forward, but most of all, you foster a culture where continuous improvement is just part of how you operate, every single day. And all of this leaves us with one final question for you to think about. Is your organization treating its anti-bribery audit as just another compliance chore, another box you have to check? Or are you using it as it's really intended, as a powerful diagnostic tool to build and maintain genuine, sustainable integrity? The answer to that could very well define the future health of your entire business.